More than ever, we need one another. So what does it mean to be an ally? Hey, everyone. Yes, turn the picture so we can see your beautiful wife there. Hi, everyone.
Hello. How
How
are
you
you,
doing, Rabbi?
David?
I'm
All right.
pretty good. Pretty good. We dodged yet another bullet. You know, I've lived here for, how many years have I lived here? Since 2014. I've never had a really serious hurricane.
Well, thanks a lot for messing that one up.
Yeah.
Because now that you
No,
said it,
no, oh, sorry. But we on the East Coast and down south, we certainly dodged a bullet. We're hoping that our friends up north are as lucky as we were.
indeed.
So a couple weeks ago, I suggested to you that we talk about something and you didn't really want to, and then you had a change of heart. Kanye West brought to our attention again, not that it ever should have gone away, but brought to our attention again the fact that anti-Semitism is real. And one of the things that we've seen is people who are not Jewish rise to the occasion and speak out and stand up. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about allyship today. What does it mean to be an ally? And I wanted to just start by sharing, this is a resource put together from a number of different sources, one of which is the Southern Poverty Law Center. An ally is someone who has privilege but chooses to stand for and with marginalized communities. It's interesting to think about, are Jews part of a are we a marginalized community? I think that's a question I want to ask you. But nonetheless, I think it's safe to say that we Jews have felt the need to have allies in this moment. And what are some of the ways that people have done that? They've listened. When people have spoken from the Jewish community, spoken out about this, they've listened, they've been educated, they've gotten involved, they've intervened, spoken up, showed up, welcomed discomfort. This is, I think, my favorite on this list. Learn from our mistakes, stay engaged, and the last one here is donate, which we've seen also. So, Rabbi, maybe we can start with, are Jews a marginalized community, right? Do we have the right to ask for people to be our allies?
Well, I think anybody has the right to seek allyship. It depends on the circumstances, the situation. In some respects, you could say that we are incredibly privileged, and therefore, why do we need allies? We're in comparison to the rest of the country, we're relatively well off. Right? Most Jews are middle class, upper middle class. We're highly educated. We are disproportionately involved in society, our impact on society. On the other hand, we are 1.5%, 2% of the population, which puts us at a point of vulnerability. And so even here in South Florida, where we're significantly more than 1.5% or 2% of the population, I can tell you that our congregants are feeling nervous.
I just wrote about this in the message that I was sending out to the preschool community today. I wrote about why Jewish is the first of our 5 core values, that it is so important for our children to learn that it's okay to be proud of who they are and their Judaism, because even in the other promised land, as I used to call it when I lived up north, we're seeing anti-Semitism rear its ugly head.
And, and we are too. So right
Yeah.
here in South Florida, we've had any number of incidents, and I think they're becoming more prevalent. For a lot of years, I didn't think so.
Didn't worry about it. Yeah.
I didn't worry about it, and I'm not worried. It doesn't keep me up at night, uh, but it bothers me that we're going in the wrong direction uh, of increased anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic acts versus in the right direction of less.
Yeah. So
So,
what does it mean from a Jewish perspective? What does it mean to be an ally? If are there models that we can look toward in Jewish history, in the Tanakh and the Bible, that can model for us what it means to be an ally?
right. So I would say there are three that I would point to out of Jewish tradition, and then we'll answer the second question is what are we looking for from our allies? So the first one actually comes from last week's Torah portion, where Abraham, our patriarch Abraham, has fought a war. He His nephew Lot had been taken captive, and he goes travels a long distance and re captures, and then he's heading back, and he runs into King Melchizedek of Shalem. Right, Shalem. The assumption is that Shalem is Jerusalem, that's the same city. So this is the Canaanite king of the precursor to Jerusalem, who comes out and greets him. And if you scroll down, scroll a little bit further, he blesses Abraham. And he blesses Abraham using God. Blessed be Abram of God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your foes into your hands. Right?
Rabbi, can I just ask a clarifying question? Sorry. Melchizedek he's not a Jewish king.
He is not a Jewish king. He is a Canaanite king.
Okay. Sorry.
Right?
But yet he's using this language.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I consider him to be an ally, because he acknowledges where his partner, that is to say, Abraham, the Jewish community, is. Right? He doesn't bless Abraham in the name of Jesus. Right? He blesses Abraham for who Abraham is. Okay? And that's where I think when we talk about why is this person an ally, is because he recognizes Abraham for who he is. Right? I think there's a second one. This is really, for me, the more compelling one, which is the story of Moses. And we have Jethro or Yitro, who is a Midianite priest. He happens to be Moses' father-in-law. And what does he do? He hears about everything that God has done for Moses and Israel, getting them out of Egypt, and he brings Zipporah, that's Moses' wife, his daughter, and their two sons, Gershom and Eleazar, brings them to Moses. So he's taking care of Moses' family. Right? Now, obviously, he has a vested interest, being that it's his daughter and grandchildren.
I was just going to ask you about that. Right.
Right.
Is this an act of altruism, or is he protecting his own family?
It's we can certainly. I'm going to give myself a certain amount of midrashic leeway and say that he's watching over uh, somebody. Really, what's more important is what comes next, which is that he 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 does like King Melchizedek does, is that he praises God um, and he worships with God. Yep, there we go, right there.
Look at
Okay.
this.
Um, Blessed be God who delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh and who delivered the people under the hand of the Egyptians. Okay, keep going. If you don't mind scrolling down. Okay, so he acknowledges God, right? And then what does he do? He brings a burnt offering and sacrifices for God, right?
Wow.
And they worship together. Okay, that
Yeah.
here it is. He's a non-Jew, right? And yet he's coming together with the Jewish community. And so you got Aaron, you got the elders, you got Moses, and you got Jethro all eating together and spending time together.
Right.
Even
This.
more so. All right, you got a comment
Well,
because there's even
I.
more to this story.
Okay. Let me just interrupt for a moment. So, it's a question. It's not a comment. I'm thinking about empathy versus sympathy and appropriation, right? I've in Hollywood, there's quite a bit of talk when a gay character is portrayed by a straight actor,
Okay.
and I'm so I don't want to dampen the beauty of this because I've never seen this before in the text. It really is beautiful, but I guess I'm wondering: could one read this as he's sort of overstepping his, but right? He's pretending to do something that is not authentic by using this Jewish language or this Israelite language and offering sacrifices. That's not his tradition.
It's possible. I'm a little more generous of spirit here, and like to give him the benefit of the doubt and not suggest that there's an ulterior motive. Maybe when we get to the third character, there'll be an ulterior motive that we might point to. But and maybe we'll get to this in a minute, is how pure do you have to be to just be there for somebody else? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I go and I stand with my Black Christian neighbors when something happens within the Black community, okay, and my congregants look at me and say, I'm proud that my rabbi, right? So because I'm getting a little bonus out of this, of my congregants feeling good, right? Does that negate the fact
Right.
that I showed up? Right?
Right. I guess what I'm getting at is, there's showing up, being present, and celebrating or honoring another person's tradition feels different to me than engaging in that tradition. It's a slight difference. I guess I'm just, and we don't have to dwell on this, but it popped into my head as I was thinking about a sense of, when does allyship become something more and something less helpful and beneficial? When does it become, you don't understand what I'm going through? You aren't in my shoes.
Right. I think that when it comes to allyship, one of the things that you had on the original slide was learning and being educated.
Yeah.
It's easy for somebody to show up and wave a flag, but um, getting educated. I want for people who are allies of the Jewish community to learn something about Jewish history. Right?
Right.
I want them to understand that experience of Jewish identity. I want them to understand the complexity of the Israel of the state of Israel. Right?
Yeah.
In order to do that,
Yeah.
they have to know something, right? And that requires something of them. Right? They can't just show up and wave a flag.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So you've got Jethro, Yitro. There's just one other piece to that story, and that is the best part of Jethro and where he becomes, I think, a wonderful example of an ally, is that Jethro gently rebukes Moses when Moses is trying to take on too much responsibility. He's overextending himself, right? And Jethro offers, yep, right there. Okay, saw how much when Moses' father-in-law saw how much he was doing for the people. He's like, what are you, nuts? Don't do that. You can't be on your own. I share the responsibility. Now I like that because if we are friends, right, if we are allies, then we should be able to speak to each other and not worry about uh, whether somebody's going to be offended. Right? I care enough about you that I want to share my thought. We don't have to agree. Right? You can take a different path. Right? But right, I want to share right with you what I need, right, and what I see, right, and I want you to hear that.
I sincerely hope that in 50 years, someone much smarter than me is able to do a study and write a book about what has happened to us that we've lost that capacity.
Well, yes, and
Because
and
we keep asking, everyone I hear keeps saying, oh, and lamenting, we don't know how to talk to each other. We don't know how to constructive criticism. We've just lost the capacity to speak honestly and lovingly with one another.
true. And I think that there's another piece to that, which is that in our increasingly polarized world, it seems that if you disagree about one thing, okay, then you can't agree about
Right.
anything.
Right.
Right? And all that does is we become further and further away. Right? Where is it? Right? Where's the opportunity for us to have some bipartisanship, right? Even though we won't agree on everything? Right? If there are 10 things on the table, right, and we can only agree on 6 of them, or 4 of them, or 2 of them, can we work on those together
Yeah.
and not feel that I can't be in the same room because you disagree with me on other things?
I think that what Yitro does here is in many ways a requirement for allyship to exist. If we cannot do what you just described and what Yitro seems to be able to do here, which is just speak openly and honestly and lovingly with someone with whom he disagrees about something, how can I ever, if everybody is other and different and opposed to me, how can I ever find the compassion within myself to stand up for injustice in a part of their life? That they're not, it's like they're not even, I don't even see them for who they are.
Correct. Uh, Let me give you a third example out of Jewish tradition, which is King David and King Hiram of Tyre. Tyre is up in Lebanon. And in this case, their relationship, and actually the relationship with King Hiram and David's son, King Solomon, is all over the Hebrew Bible. Hiram helps both King David and King Solomon build the temple. And again, we have a third example of him blessing God, a non-Jew blessing God, in this case, for giving David a wise son. And I don't think it's actually in this one. I think it's maybe in the
Yeah,
Chronicles.
as I was scrolling, this is David took 2 more concubines and
Yeah.
wives, and
Well,
ay ay ay.
yep. Yeah. So why do I think that Hiram is an ally? Because he supports David and Solomon in their project. Right? He sends his peeps over to help. He sends his best. Now, is this a political alliance? I'm sure, yes, but let's, well, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with allies benefiting, each person benefiting. It doesn't have to be pure altruism in order for it to be allyship.
Well, I think that in some ways, look, unless you are a well, maybe even if you are a white upper class male, at some point we all find ourselves in a position where we need an ally, we need support, and so it always benefits us to what is the right? Why should we take care of the stranger? Because you were a stranger in a strange land. You know what this is like, and you probably will again. And so don't think that you're immune. It will always benefit you to support others, those who are less
When I
lucky
was
than you are.
when I was over at Antioch Missionary Baptist Church on Sunday, this past Sunday.
Yeah, wait. Tell us about that. Tell us about that. How did this
Well,
happen? Before you get into what actually happened, how did this come about?
so this has been a long time in coming, is that I've been developing a relationship with Pastor Arthur Jackson III, who is the senior pastor at Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, just a couple miles down the road from us. And uh, when uh, when the Kanye West anti-Semitic talk came out, I reached out to 3 of my friends who are ministers, pastors in the Black Baptist churches in town, and I said, I just want you to know that the Jewish people are hurting. That this is a scary time for us, and all 3 of them responded back to me, what can I do? Pastor Jackson immediately invited me to come and speak on Sunday. Yep, there he is, Pastor Jackson. You can go um, onto their YouTube channel and see the things that I said. Uh, but next week, I'm going to be on WMBM Radio, which is Bishop Victor Curry from New Birth Baptist Church. So this is what being allies is about. Is I needed something and I didn't hesitate and I cheered, and they may not have noticed it, and that's okay. Um, would it have been ideal that they recognized it and saw, wait, this might be hurting my friend? Sure, but that isn't what. Oh, there I am. So uh, they even if they don't even if they don't notice it, I felt comfortable knowing that they are allies of mine, to reach out and share with them, and for them to immediately say, "What can I do?" Okay, and I think that um, allies, authentic allies of any group, okay, if you ask me what they should do, what's the first thing they should do? Okay, it is to ask the other, what do you need? Okay? Allies don't presume to tell you what you need. Right? They choose to be present with you. Right? They choose to meet you where you are at, right? Even if they don't agree with you. But at least they're at a point of open ears and open understanding, right? And then, right, recognizing where you're at, then we can have a dialogue about how I can be helpful or how they can be helpful to me, how what's going on with me, and then we can figure out where we're disagreeing on things.
Yeah, listen. The first step is,
First
and
one.
I just, it
First
says
one.
listen to what marginalized people are saying face to face. Huh, ironic.
Right.
On your social media feed or in articles that you read. It's not about you. This is the ally. It's not about you, your feelings or opinions. It's about hearing theirs. Very
Correct.
often, I'll just speak for myself. Very often, I assume what another person is feeling, or I assume what they might need from me.
Right.
But true allyship is not about what I think they need. It's about what they tell me they need, or what they tell me they're feeling. And that requires me to do a little tzimtzum, right? A little withdrawing, as
Withdrawing
it were,
into ourselves.
so that I can make room for them. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I'm watching our time, and
Yep.
I want to finish. When people ask me, what do you want from an ally, and I represent the Jewish community. What is it that I'm specifically looking for allies of the Jewish community at this point? Um, we mentioned some of them. One is I want them to learn about Jewish history and Jewish tradition so that they understand who I am. I want them to understand that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and that there's complexity in the state of Israel, and what the state of Israel chooses to do for its own security and for its own growth. And I'm not holding up the state of Israel as a paragon of virtue. Anybody who knows me knows that I speak out against Israel when I think that they're wrong. I do the same for the United States, and I would do the same for any other group. Um, so the third thing, I don't want Jews to be judged on a higher standard. Okay, that somehow we're supposed to be holier than thou, and when we don't, when we're not, okay, then we're terrible. Right? I want allies of the Jewish community to not support or appease people who want to kill Jews. Right?
Boy,
I
boy,
want
that shouldn't have to be said.
it shouldn't have to be said.
But
Right? I want people to expose and neutralize anti-Semites, right? Including celebrity
yeah,
anti-Semites, right? With as
yeah.
much clarity as the average guy who's on the street corner, who we despise and generally ignore, right? But when you have people who have large platforms, then they need to be called out.
And
Um,
can I just add to that don't think that the spray painting of a swastika on a synagogue or a Jewish community center is any less impactful and dangerous as saying or posting or spreading anti-Semitic speech. Words matter.
right,
Language matters,
for sure.
especially when you have influence.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's so many other things. I want people to be aware of the vocabulary that people use, particularly around anti-Israel vocabulary. When words like genocide and colonialism and apartheid,
Apartheid. Yeah.
yeah, are all thrown around, bandied around um, when um, when Zionism is equated with racism or Nazism. That's just not acceptable, and I want people to call that out. Um, when even things like um, the terms that we use, like Old Testament, or Pharisee, or a religion of law versus a religion of love.
Love.
These are things that um, they show some anti-Jewish biases, and most people, I tend to think they just don't know. And so we
Right. It
have
all
to.
comes down to education. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
I'm thinking,
So
Old Testament. I mean, that's the church has that's church language. That's not, anti-Semitic people, or that's not people intentionally being anti-Semitic. And yet,
right.
again, words matter and they carry meaning. And
That's right.
yeah,
And that's a theological a difference, right?
right,
But for me to say, in your Old Testament, versus in my Hebrew Bible, I want people to understand why I'm making that distinction. And making that
right,
distinction, I can say you have what you call the Old Testament, and I get why you call it the Old Testament. Right? I don't call it that because
right.
for me, it's not.
Can I share with you? I went to Israel. I think it was back in 2014. It was a group of rabbis from all over the world. When we went to oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name. It was like a monastery, I guess. It was for an interfaith conference, and all of the doors had. Wait, let me think. What was it? All the doors had. Trying to remember what it. The door handles. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting exactly. The door handles all had. It looked like the letter N or something. I forget exactly what it was. All the door handles, like these brass door handles, they all looked like a letter. And the whole conference, we were wondering why. And as it turns out, the door handles of this building are all crosses. But they added a piece of wood to every door handle so that us rabbis wouldn't have to go around grabbing the cross. And so that's why it ended up with this strange like N or
Wow.
H shape or whatever. It was they were so thoughtful in understanding how we might react to having a cross on every door and having to interact with that. And and preemptively went around to every door handle and added a piece of wood. It really was a stunning example, I think, for me of allyship.
I
There
think
was,
beautiful.
I was, yeah, I was, and I wasn't at risk. There was no, allyship doesn't only have to happen when something goes wrong. It
No,
can happen, and it should happen consistently, even when things are great.
that's the message right there.
Yeah.
Right? Is if we develop relationships during good times, then when there are bad times, those relationships are there, and we can draw on them.
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
is why I
Absolutely.
do the work that I do.
Yeah.
It takes
So
a lot of time.
the radio spot that you're doing, that's going to be on Sunday, you said?
It's going to be next Tuesday.
Next
Next
Tuesday.
Tuesday on WMBM radio. It's a Christian gospel radio, AM radio station. And I'm going to be joined by Josh Sales, who is the head of the Jewish Community Relations Council and Governmental Affairs for Federation. And we're going to be talking about how to be supportive of each other.
Great, great. Definitely tune in for that. And then I know that we also have the church coming to synagogue later on this year.
Yeah,
Martin Luther King weekend.
January, on the Friday night of Martin Luther King weekend. Pastor Jackson is going to be our guest speaker, and their choir, which I can assure you will rock the house. They rocked the house on Sunday when I was there, and they will rock our house as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
And for those of you, if you haven't watched Rabbi Litwak's talk at services, if you just Google the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church Miami, it's on their live feed. It's not only is your message fantastic, but just seeing you in that setting and seeing what that experience is like is worth its weight in gold. It was just beautiful. Really,
it starts at I think
around 50.
47. 47. Minute 47. Yeah, there's an introduction, which is a really nice introduction and speaks to allyship.
A beautiful introduction, yes. And then you start speaking at 49:30. So definitely check that out.
Good.
All right, my friends, have a lovely Shabbat, and we'll see you next time.
You're on Face to Face.
Yes, you are. Bye, everyone.